Okay, good evening, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to our Black History Month event. And today we're going to have a conversation between men and friends. Of course, we are doing this in the spirit of Black History Month, where we want to acknowledge this time of the year where we can celebrate and share our stories, our culture, and also a time of the year where we can share stories that can hopefully embolden us to move forward and have a better tomorrow. But before I jump into the presentations and into this panel discussion, I want to acknowledge where we are today. We are in the Robinson-Huron Treaty area, and the land which we are all on here in the Sudbury area is Tikmashang Anishinabeg territory. So with that acknowledgement, I would like to kick us off with our events. We do have a couple of guests that we want to acknowledge before we jump into the panel. And at the top of my list right now is our Chief Paul Patterson of the Greater Sudbury Regional Police Services. Chief Paul Patterson, I'd like to invite you to unmute yourself. I'm going to ask you to unmute now. If you can please unmute yourself. And I'm also going to spotlight you for everyone. Okay, I think you're spotlighted now. So could you please go ahead and give us your greetings, and then we can move on to our next guest of honor after you're done giving us your greetings and words. Thank you for coming to join us.
It truly is my pleasure. Good evening, everybody. I'm Paul Patterson. I'm the Chief of Police here in Sudbury. Truly an honor to join you. You know, when I saw the invitation that said "and friends," I don't know if I can express how heartwarming it is to be welcomed as a friend. Not lost on me, I'm a Chief of Police and I'm not everybody's friend. And I'm not just talking about the people at my workplace. I'm talking about some community members too. Do you want me to go on with it, or am I going to do my piece a little later on?
You can go ahead now. You can go ahead now.
Okay, good. You know, I want to acknowledge as well Shantae Robinson. Thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this. Charles Nyabeze. I think I don't know if you know Charles. I met your son, and he's a good man. He hasn't fallen far from the trees. But I met him in a youth thing not that long ago. Was really fantastic. You know what I want to try to present to everybody tonight is sort of a picture of where we are as your police service. I know I've only got a few minutes. I don't want to spend forever. But I want to speak from the heart. Obviously, I've got some notes to help me along, or you'll be listening to me for 2 hours. But I want to say that it's a commitment from your police service, commitment from your chief to work collectively and collaboratively for a better tomorrow. Break down those barriers, you know, acknowledge what's happened and what's happening around us. And then ultimately building, you know, the bridges that, quite frankly, is something so many of us take for granted, but not every one of us has in their life, is the simple pleasure of safety, security, the ability to go out for a walk in the evening and not be frightened, and not be frightened by agents of the state, specifically police. You know, to say that the events over the past several years have challenged the trust between the public and the police is truly an understatement. But I want you to hear as well, if it was just events over the past 2 years, if it was just the murder of George Floyd, we wouldn't be here, would we? It's because of things that have gone on before and continue to go on today that brings about those challenges. And I just want you to hear from me as a police chief. We want to continue to work together, and it is working together. If I had all the answers, if it was as simple as flipping a light switch, I want you to know I would have done that. What's happened here in Sudbury? Well, there was a lot of things going on beforehand. You know, a lot of friendships that we've had in our community beforehand, friendships with community leaders, with individuals, partnerships. But in the fall of 2020, we made a very public statement that we wanted to be committed to make impactful change. And we created working groups, specific working groups within Sudbury Police. We called them Reframing Police. What do we want from our police service? What does the community want from our police service? And there were 4 main working groups. The first one was anti-racism, with a most specific focus on anti-Black racism, but not exclusively. Also, racism infecting Indigenous peoples and people of color of all denominations. So an anti-racism working group. We also saw that there was some real friction between police and people in mental health crisis. You know, that question that I've often said, if we were to build a mental health system from the grassroots up, would we ever put a gun and a taser and pepper spray at the touch point of mental health, mental wellness? We wouldn't. So we're in this position now where, and not lost on me, that we've got a situation out in Calgary where sadly an individual has lost his life, again, at the hands of police, and again, where mental illness is at the heart of it. And we wanted to ask, what else can we do as a community response to mental health calls? It's a business we don't want to be in. It's a business we get pulled into. We also wanted to talk about authentic inclusion in our workplace, specifically gender-related. Women, we're underrepresented for women, 2S LGBTQ+. How do we make members in our workforce feel included? And how do we bring members like that to our workforce? And then finally, another piece that is very real in our workplace is the mental health and wellness of the people that don the uniforms every day. Lots of challenges for them right now. It really is all about putting the right tools and the right people in the right place at the right time. We want to be inclusive. We want to be transparent. We want to develop an internal culture that recognizes and understands the social context in which we operate. We want very much for our anti-racism group to give voices to people that haven't had voices before. That specifically is our BIPOC folk working in our organization, but also voices outside of our organization and subject matter experts, people that have studied this to help us. And we are looking at everything from recruiting strategies, promotional strategies. We are looking at everything from how we transfer, and then how do we retain people. And for those of you who heard me talk before, sometimes I liken it to the person that's got food in their teeth, right? You don't know you've got food in your teeth, but you always like it when somebody says, hey, you need to check your teeth. And we don't know what we don't know. And so we can't keep trying to fix it by using the same people and the same tools over and over again. Focusing on race-based data collection, and creating a working group. Litha, I see you here, and I brag sometimes about Ulu, and so I won't go into the whole biography because you're here and you'll talk about it. But I talk about, for me, I mean, look at me, I'm an old man. But for me, these are young people that had the courage to come into the police station and address anti-Black racism, address all of the things from, from cultural insensitivity to overt racism to the words just escaping me were racial profiling, all of these things. And these are young folk that, they haven't stepped back from a class. We've had to pause some because of COVID and, some of those things. And I can tell you that we've had, I think, 219 members, and maybe Litha, more than me, 219 members, and we're only 300 and some odd members strong. So we're well over halfway there. And everybody that's been through it is saying it's some of the best learning experience that they've had. And I think you remember the conversation where I had with you guys, where I was saying, it's not so much learning of the head, it's teaching from the heart, and that's the thing that we want to keep going. We of course have diversity advisory committees, youth committees, During Black History Month, we try to give voice to some of our diversity advisory community members to talk about what we're doing, also to our own members, people that you may know. One of our recent promotions, Sergeant Mullins, he spoke about his family legacy and why he's proud to be a Black Canadian police officer. Detective Constable Renford, who speaks about his children, speaks about some of his struggles, some of the racism he felt in this community before he was a police officer. And then sitting beside those officers within the workforce and how much of a challenge that is for him. Just recently this month, through Black History Month, there's a program out there, a group of even younger kids than you guys, Culture of the North, BIPOC Youth Taking Action. I don't know if you know about this, but this is a group of I think they're high school or very first year university students that are doing a project that is looking at racism in the classroom, racism in the community, and looking to build programs and processes to help kids feel more included in the educational processes and the barriers there too. And they came to our police service, our members, to give their presentation of their work and to see how we could partner, and we want to keep doing that. I can go on, and I just want to reassure you that we know we're still working on it. We know we've got work to do. I find it difficult to present on Zoom. I'd much rather be talking to you in person to person. But I want you to know that our rich values, respect, inclusivity, courage, and honesty, our rich values are things that we want to come off the wall and we want to bring to life. But we know they don't bring to life by just saying, they come to life by doing them. And we know we've got work to do. I picked off a quote somewhere off the internet recently that I think is just fantastic, is you learn nothing from life if you think you're right all the time. And I think as a police service, we're starting to recognize that we're not right all the time. We're not perfect all the time, but we are committed to learning all the time. So I'll say thank you, merci, megwich. Hopefully I didn't go too long, Charles, and thanks again for including me this evening.
Yeah, and thank you so much for attending. You know, it is good for us to be able to know that we consider a partner in you, Chief Paul Patterson. And we're looking forward to, again, when we have our Black History Month events, where we can invite you to some amazing food and events, and hopefully some entertainment that can help us all to keep crossing that cultural divide that we have to keep narrowing. So I also like to take a moment right now to acknowledge our Member of Parliament, Vivian Lapointe. Vivian, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to continuing to see you. And I also want to acknowledge Jamie West, who did say it was going to be late coming to this meeting, so I don't see it here. Also, we did get some regrets from our other MPs. From Mark Seri, he said he couldn't come today. He was occupied, but which is fine. So what I would like to do now is again bring back our panel to the conversation here. But let me just make sure that I've got all the panelists coming on correctly here. Maybe I won't do that just yet. All right. Sorry, I'm having technical difficulty, but I've just fixed. Okay, there we go. All right. So just jumping into the panel discussion. Maybe the first person I want to maybe call upon is, or let's call upon Francois. And Francois, the question that we have to open up our discussion is, what does Black History Month mean to you, Francois? If you can just tell us in your own words, what does it mean for you when we say this Black History Month? Can you just maybe elaborate your own perspective on that? And then we can move on to the next panelist after you. Please go ahead, Francois.
Thank you, Charles. My name is Francois Nzotungwanimana, and I've been here in Sudbury for the last 12 years. I've had the fortunate to travel pretty much all over Canada, but I've been in Northern Ontario for the last 15 years. And thanks for inviting me here. Now, Black History Month is a lot more than just a celebration. Of course, we take the time to reflect on our past, on our successes, some of the pioneers that have preceded us in this land. And to me, every time I think about Black History Month, I think of the first people that came here back in the 1600s, maybe even before. At least the information that we have documented, dates back to when people like Matthew da Costa came and they came here to work. He was an interpreter for the French team that was coming across North America. So I go back from that period to now, and I look at all the generations and how integrated and different places where we are. And to me, it's just amazing that people from all over the world can come together and make the Canada we have. So it's a celebration, but it's also a learning session.
Thank you so much, Francois, for that. And as I move on to the next person, I'd like to ask you to also introduce yourself a little bit while you're telling us your answer. So, Litha, what are your thoughts on Black History Month? What is it about? What does it mean to you? And at the same time, please give us a bit of a brief on who you are and sort of where you're coming from. Please go ahead, Litha.
Good evening, everyone. So I was saying, my name is Litha. I'm an Laurentian alumni. I'm a co-founder of Ulum. And now I'm self-employed where I'm running my own digital marketing company. And I still do some presentations on anti-racism and diversity with Ulum. So to answer your questions about what does Black History Month mean to me, again, it's a time to reflect, right? And also a time for me to also understand the amount of work that the people that came before us have put in for me to be in this position, right? And in the old teachings back home, it's never about where I am right now. It's also about who's going to come after me and who came before me, right? Because work had to be done for me to be here. So when we're talking about events like Black History Month, it's time for me to reflect on that, to be thankful on that, and to honor that. So yeah, that's something.
Excellent, Litha. Thank you so much for sharing that. All right, I'm going to move on to Marcel. Marcel, introduce yourself and also please answer that question. What does Black History Month mean to you?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Marcel Diro. I'm from Ivory Coast. I'm a graduating student at Laurentian and also bank teller. For me, Black History Month, I didn't knew this celebration when I was in Africa, when I was in Ivory Coast, because I came here 4 years ago. So now I knew that it's for me like a way to promote our culture to the world, to where we are now. Because for me, it's like we have a podium, we are on the podium, and then now we have to promote our culture.
Low. Battery, please charge.
So it's a way to promote our culture to the rest of the community members. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Marcel, for that. I'm going to move on to our next panelist, and it's Faruk. Faruk, could you please introduce yourself and tell us your thoughts on Black History Month and what it means?
Hi, my name is Faruk. I own Yes Body Cleaning Services. I've been in Canada for about 15 years now. I moved in when I was 15. Actually, 15 and I'm 15. What Black History Month means to me is like all my brothers already explained actually what I'm supposed to pitch in here, but it means more than just, getting together, but then just standing up for people that don't have a voice. I never had a voice before, but when you get to realize the culture and so many people that are behind you, or even realizing who your mentors are, and then they're telling you stories, you realize it's all about just standing for yourself, right? So Black History Month has inspired me, has motivated me, has made me want to share my story, because I feel like I could get, the people around me to be well educated and well knowledgeable about Black History Month and knowing your culture and where you're from. But that's what I would say about Black History Month.
All right, thank you for that. I'm going to just add all the presenters to the spotlight here so that we can continue our discussion. So guys, here's a question that I sort of want to throw out at you is maybe some of a statement first. I'm from Zimbabwe, right? And I came to Canada in 1991. I went to Laurentian University, did my mining engineering degree there, did my MBA from Laurentian, and I'm working now in the mining industry in town. But something interesting happened to me is that when I came to Canada was really the first time somebody ever called me a Black person. So, being that way, most of you here are from Africa, and I think you're all from Africa. Can you tell me, like, when was the first time you sort of were called a Black person or were called a Black man? And how did you react to that reality of sort of being called? And I think Marcel and I were talking yesterday about this, and we're talking about how both you and I were saying, hey, I became Black in Canada. What happened, right? Back home, nobody ever called me a Black man. So what are some of your thoughts about that? Let's start with Faruk. Faruk, what are your thoughts about just that title of a Black man and how you reacted to it?
I mean, a lot of people do call me a Black man, but I never understand their perspective of why they call me a Black man. But they don't, like, most people don't understand. So there's always a difference, right? So people that call you a Black man don't understand the culture or where you're from or what you represent, right? So the people that do understand that do actually want to learn and then acknowledge you by what you're supposed to be acknowledged by, right? So, but my first experience of being called a Black man, I mean, to me, it was just like, that's whatever your talk was about. I did take that to heart, but what would be my response to that person? You know what I'm saying? Like, it wouldn't be a response for me to, like, my response would have been like to educate them, but it would have to go through a long process of me trying to educate them. But moving on, going through, talking to somebody and knowing what they actually want to know about Black man. I mean, I wouldn't want anybody to be called a Black man. So I would actually always just try to educate people, try to let them know and try to know how they can approach people that are color for sure.
Thank you for that. I want to move forward to Francois. And Francois, before you answer the question, I mean, I think, just jokingly, I think many people have sort of said, there's a, kind of Black cat, Black magic. And so there's all the associations with Black that are negative. So maybe give us your understanding, like when you first sort of became aware that you were labeled a Black man, how did you sort of react to that?
When, just looking back to when I was growing up, born in the 70s and growing up in the 80s, I recall that the awareness of, differences was quite relevant, even, being brought up in Burundi, which is in the middle of Africa. You can start from tribal differentiations in pretty much everywhere you go. There's always going to be differences. And one of the identification and the labels that people get is either by color or by tribe or by height and all these things that make us different. But over time, I've learned to look at the similarities as well. So when you look about, talk about being Black or being white, it's just a label to me. It's just a label because white people are not white. We know the color of white as the color of snow, and most Black people are not even Black. So for me, it's a label for identification, but it's also got stigma. Obviously, the history has taught us that a lot of this stigmatization have gotten some really setback in some communities, especially the Black community, because in the English world, the English language, there's a lot of references to Black as something negative. But to me, I see it as something positive, because there are also a lot of things that are Black that are positive. So does it really matter to me, or does it affect me? It's actually meaningless to me.
Gotcha. Thank you for that, Francois. And I'm going to move on to Marcel. And I think part of the reason why the question came up, Marcel, is, when you write the words, I saw a Black man, people always sort of say, oh, is that culturally appropriate to even say it like that? Or you should just say, I saw a man, right? So Marcel, maybe tell us, what are some of your feelings about the use of the word Black man?
So the first time that came to my mind, to my brain, was when I got my first job, and then they asked me to define myself, if I'm like a black person or just a First Nation. So that's it. It's at that time that I realized this, it's very important. So as Francois said, I don't take that negative. For me, that means I'm probably special. What I say that is now, like for diversity, when you have like a job or like the company looks for like diversity. So if I am part of a company, that means I bring something into this company. And then in that way, I really like that, because that make me feel special. And then what they do that now, it's because they want us to bring something into this company. So I will go with that, with all I have, like also my culture, and then show to everyone that yes, I'm a black person, because this is how you can describe myself, you can describe me, but also it's part of my culture. So yeah, that's something very positive for me.
And Litha, I want to move on to you now with the same question. But Litha, given that you have some experience dealing with the police services and other institutions, maybe from your side, Litha, what I want to ask you is, sometimes you see like a newspaper article or a report on a website for news article, and it says, for example, that the person who robbed the store was 5 feet tall, they wearing a blue jacket, and then you're always looking, are they going to say it was a black person? Is there a black person? So what are some of your thoughts, Litha, when we come across things like that, right? And we have this reaction, that we're wondering, is there a black person or is it not a black person, right? What are your thoughts about some of those things?
No, I think, yes, it's something that does happen from time to time, where that might pop into my mind. But I would like to draw a little bit of a context, kind of like how you had answered the question initially. I was born and raised in South Africa, and I'm assuming a majority of you might know a little bit of the history of South Africa, the division of different races in different locations. So back home, I was always I was considered like a black person, and there were coloreds, as you would know, and there's also like whites. And I remember one time in class, it was a geography class, where Mr. Engels, he took 30 applications and applied to a university. And then in those applications, he signed as black. And then I think he took 20 colored and 10 whites. Because in South Africa at the time, when you're applying at the university, you had to put what race you are, right? And they said the reason for that was because they wanted to do the census, so they knew the number of the students at the university. And then when he got back some of those results, he realized that there were more white students and colored students that were accepted in the school, even though the application numbers were totally different, which was a study that he was doing. So it was an eye-opener for me, because when apartheid was happening, I never got to experience that. It ended before I was born, right? But there was kind of a short light to show that Black had been made a status, right? And a way of life. And you touched on something, Charles, when you said it's always associated with death, like black. Like if you look at the dictionary, I think it was the Black Law Dictionary. It also, if you look at the different definitions of white and black, they have totally polar opposite definitions, right? One is always associated with good, and the other one is also associated with bad, right? So historically, it has been made a type of identity, and it has been tied to negative, right? But it's not how Black initially started. Black, I've always known and always been taught within my family, has had a positive ties to it, right? It's something that you would have to be proud of. Your kinky hair is something you have to be proud of, right? And even in the community, something that I felt like I had to be proud of. It's only until when I came to even North America that I found how much the definition was twisted and was totally different to what I was taught growing up. So yes, Black has been tied to a lot of negative connotations. Hence why when I look at those newspapers, when I'm seeing the news and I'm seeing something like that, I'm already interpreting that, oh, it might be tied to that, even though it's
Guys, if you have some background music just or talk, just mute yourself and I can unmute you as necessary. Thank you.
Yeah. So it has been shifted and manipulated over time, but I'm bringing that up because I never want to take away that part of my identity. You know what I mean? Like before it was identified as Black, it was called Kemet, Kem, Miyama, which had nothing to what it meant, nothing close to what it is today. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question or I kind of like.
For sure. Thank you for that. For sure. Look, guys, I'm going to move on to another question here. And, this question is around stereotypes, right? And the question is, why do you think it is very important to not conform to stereotypes? And also, why is it so important to not let the stereotypes define you, right? So I'm going to start with Francois. Francois, so maybe give us a perspective from your end. Why is it so important to not conform to the stereotypes? And why is it so important to not let the stereotypes define you? Francois, go ahead.
The moment you start, going in a community from pretty much a young age, you realize that, whether you come from a specific family, rich or poor, there are certain expectations from the community. And one of the things that I realized over time, and it's not just in Canada, pretty much everywhere I've gone. I remember going to Argentina and where apparently there used to be a lot of Black people, but and then they looked at me and said, "Oh, by the way, just for you to know, we've never had any slavery in Argentina." But digging deep into that, there were a lot of Black people, but they were either killed or moved up to Brazil. And so as soon as they saw me, they started thinking, oh, he's going to think that he's not welcomed and so on. And so they started telling me all these stories that, yeah, you're welcome. So stereotypes, they follow you. And the biggest way to really deal with them is to, yes, acknowledge them, but be assertive and be the best person you can be. So in my dealings, I try to be the best I can to represent myself and my family, my communities in the best way I can, because that changes not only how the person next to you responds to you, but it also portrays the reality that we are the same, but we are also different. So what people might think about Litha might be different, and it will be different when you come across me. But I want to see the best version of that person coming out. So that's how I handle it.
Okay, thank you, Francois, for that. I'm going to move on to Marcel. So Marcel, again, the question is, why is it important for you to not let stereotypes define who you are as a person? Could you maybe give us a perspective on that?
Yep. So I think when people have stereotype to like any person else, I think they just don't really know who you are. They don't really know your culture. That's the thing. And then for me, culture is what you keep when you lose everything. So when you born somewhere, it's an obligation to learn everything around you. So for example, me, I born in Ivory Coast. So I will for sure be different to people born in Canada because we don't have the same culture. What if, for example, in my country or in my village, we eat with our hands. because it's very good. For sure, I like that. And then in European, they eat with like fork, stuff like that. It's just because I think in their story, they had like a disease. How to say, like the disease, they cut their fingers because people there was not like was very dirty. But in my culture, we can still eat with our hands, and that cannot shock people because we are different, and then we have to accept that. The last month, I went to Dubai, and then I was surprised to see in the toilet like well water, because I guess they use that for the toilet, but I never saw that before around the world in other airports. So that means for me, it is not because they are poor. You can see it's Dubai. It's just because it's their culture, and then I have to respect that. I cannot put that on other way to say, or maybe laugh about it, and then be like, oh, they do that because they are maybe poor or stuff like that. No, I have to respect that, and then don't have stereotype. So as my uncle Francois said again, it's like I have to put that in the best way when I'm confronted to them. Like try to acknowledge them that it's my culture, it's what I learned when I just born. It's not by my fault. It's something, it's also good because you don't know. And then I'm very proud of what I am. Yeah, so that's it.
Thank you for that, Marcel. I really like the point you made when you say that culture is what you have when everything else is kind of taken away, right? It's sort of the essence of who you are, and you have to be able to have the courage, to stand up for who you are as who you are as a person. Okay, I'm gonna move on to Faruk. Faruk, again, around the story of stereotypes. Tell me, what is your opinion about that? About not letting stereotypes define you? Can you give us maybe a perspective on that?
I don't let stereotype define me because, I've been through so many obstacles that like if you're just visiting one of the questions you asked about being a Black man. So I don't let a lot of situations get to me, because when you look at stereotyping, like how people, leave visiting Marcel's and Francois' point is like, you can't define a person just by looking at them, or you can't say, oh, like even just working hard in general, or just doing something for somebody else just because of a good heart, because we all come from so many different places in the world that we all represent so many different things, right? So, I mean, for me, it's like, I always get back to just educating people, right? So like if anybody's trying to be stereotypical towards me, I just actually always just try to let them know I come from West Africa, Nigeria. How we do things there is very, very different. Even if I'm married to a white woman from Canada, I've learned so much about culture and just, transiting both culture together. So I know how it's like with most people. So I always just stay educated and just stay knowledgeable to let people know this is how you can approach, or this is how I deal with stereotypes.
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, I think it's so important to just be yourself, right? Be who you are.
Yes, sir.
In it, and bridge the knowledge gap by educating people who need to be educated.
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's move on to Litha. Litha, so again on the idea around stereotypes, maybe give us your comments on why it's so important to not let stereotypes define you.
I really want to hop on what Marcel had said, because he said a very powerful thing where he said it's just people that they don't know, right? So they're going to come about and make those assumptions. And if you look at some of the stereotypes, the racial stereotypes that are there, most of the stereotypes are never even created by the group that is assumed to be there. You know what I mean? So it kind of goes back to, I'm so firm in who I am, and I believe in who I am and where I come from, that it's very hard for someone who I don't know, that it evidently doesn't know me, for making those stereotypes to kind of sway me off, right? So no, I think that's a very, very important factor, because again, kind of when you push things back, you'll find that a lot of stereotypes and ideas of certain groups being primitive. If you really look at it, the people that were identifying them as primitive, they were primitive of that land that they the culture that they came across, right? So if I'm coming in and I'm saying, hey, this group or this community is behind, or they're not good in this and that, maybe I don't understand that culture, right? Kind of again, hopping what Marcel had said, I don't understand the culture, maybe I don't understand the people. So it's not them who are primitive, it might be me. So and then I think that just makes it easier for me to just, if someone can say anything or try to be stereotypical, it goes back to, they don't know who I am, right?
Okay.
I react to that or allow it to dictate who I am, then it just shows how little I know of myself or my identity.
Exactly. Got you there. Thank you for that answer. What I'm going to do now, guys, is I'm going to just invite our friend Jamie West, our member of Provincial Parliament, to say a couple of words to us. So, Jamie, I'm going to unmute you, and I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself, and then I'm going to spotlight you. You the spotlight right there. So, Jamie, if you could give us a couple of words on Black History Month, and maybe some encouraging words or whatever it is that's on your heart. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Charles. I like that. Whatever's in your heart. It's a good way of thinking about it. So I'm Jamie West. I'm the member of Provincial Parliament for Sudbury. I want to start by apologizing. I was supposed to be here at 6, and the government tabled a new bill, and I was scheduled to debate, and the debate started at 6, so I came as soon as I could. I want to thank you, Charles, and the members of the Afro-Heritage Association of Sudbury, just for inviting me to come today and this event about Black History Month. And honestly, the first event for Black History Month that I went to as an MPP was in person at College Boreal, and it was fascinating. All the things that I thought I knew, but I learned. And I'm just being very transparent and open with you guys that there were things I thought I knew but didn't know. And it reminds me sometimes that sometimes you feel like you're an ally, but you're just being polite. You're just on the sidelines. You're not participating. You're not trying to learn. And I recognize I'm never going to be Black, but there is that opportunity to learn. There's that opportunity to recognize that I have blind spots, that I see the world a different way. My experiences are different than many of you, particularly those of you who come from other countries. And Marcel just recently, he talked about culture, and it reminded me of when I went to Brazil. I was in Brazil something for work. I was there for about 2 weeks, and there was another person from Canada there, and everywhere we went, we laughed. We were always laughing about how we couldn't figure out how to buy batteries. We couldn't figure out how to use the bus. We couldn't we just felt like children, and we were always laughing. And one of the guides who's with us thought that we were laughing at Brazil, laughing about the culture of Brazil, but we were laughing about the fact that we didn't understand anything. We went for dinner once, and I kept eating and asking for seconds and thirds of this soup that I thought was delicious. And there were some kids laughing at me because basically the soup, it was a form of a potato. I just never had it before, right? So these kids, it was sort of like the regular meal they would have all the time. And I'm, eager to have more and more mashed potatoes. And it's that recognizing culture, and that culture is different, and enjoying the differences of culture, which are really, really important. I think another thing too is language. Je parle un peu en français. Avant 2018, je ne parle rien en français. Et maintenant, je ne parle très bien, mais toujours je prends des bits in bits. Thank you for that. And the other thing too that I think I'm fortunate as an MPP is that for the first time in the history of the provincial legislature, we have a Black caucus. And I don't mean we as NDP, I mean, we as NDP do have it, but it's the first time any party had a Black caucus. It's the first time that 5 people of color were elected, well, more than 5, were elected at one time to form a Black caucus. And how that changes things. When I talked earlier about the difference between being polite or being an ally, that as we discuss policies and program, it's always through that lens of being a person of color. It's always through anti-racism. It's always through education. It's always through how does this look from people who don't look like you, who didn't grow up the way you did. And it's, I think, a wonderful time for me to be involved with politics and to expand and learn. And just, I'll close up by saying how thankful I am Charles and Teresa as well, and everyone who helped organize this. I know Charles and Teresa personally, and for the participants for speaking. I get so much out of this. It's so valuable to me. And so just I'm eternally grateful to all of you guys for organizing and the speakers as well, including the speakers who were in the last, in the women's forum as well. Just thank you so much for this.
Awesome. Jamie, thank you so much for coming, and thank you for sharing your thoughts with us as well. And the thing is, Jamie, I was trying to say that, look, at the end of the day, right, we all want to understand, but I think we also want to be understood, right? So I think that's so important to bridge that knowledge gap. And so we're really grateful for you to be able to come online and share with us, your history with situations where you were uncomfortable, and then how you became comfortable in those situations. Because I think all of us here, once in a while, you end up in a situation where you're a little bit uncomfortable. You're not quite sure whether you're whether people are laughing at you or are laughing with you. So there's a little bit of that you need to do all the time. So guys, I want to switch it around a little bit, and I want to talk about Black women. Okay, I want to talk about Black women with you guys. And the thing about Black women is, and the thing that I want to bring out is, it's really a question. It's, do you believe Black women are well represented in society? And as a Black man, right, how would you say you're an advocate for Black women? Maybe let's start off with Litha for this one. Litha, how would you say you're an advocate for Black women, and how do you feel Black women are represented in society? Please go ahead. I think the Black women, Litha, just so you know, the Black women online are anxious to see what you're going to say.
You're putting pressure on me right now. Yeah, no, like, I would say they haven't been well represented, but I'm seeing some change, right, in different positions, in different places in the workplace. But I still want to continue highlighting that when we're talking about supporting Black women, especially in the workplace, we always have to understand the intersectionalities, right? Like, for example, let's say like being Black has been something that people have been oppressed or discriminated against in the workplace, but a Black woman has two things that are intersecting, right? Being women and also being Black, right? So I think as people that can say we are advocates, or we try to be advocates, we understand that, right? So for me, I can understand racism differently than what a Black woman understands racism as, because her challenges might be totally different. So I would say that when it comes to advocating, yes, I understand that, and I continue to try and learn the intersectionalities and how I can be very supportive. And I would say the other thing that I try and do personally is I try and represent them well, right? Like, I have a younger sister, and I told her I spoke to her about, I made it a mission one year to just compliment her about her hair and her natural looks all the time. And I think it was maybe 5 years ago, and her hair has been natural ever since, you know what I mean? And I continue to try and do that because I understand there's so many things that are telling her she's not beautiful in so many different angles. If you see the standard of beauty, if you see the standard of like what is beautiful and what is not. And I try and combat that, right? And I think also representation also affects imagination. So if I'm showing her that she's beautiful and I'm talking to her like that, or I'm making an effort even on social media to promote them in a way that they're well represented, it will also like help them feel good too, right? So I think that's like one way that I kind of look at it from a more personal standpoint. And then in a more professional sense, I'll say I also try and make sure that I'm well aware of intersectionalities and how they might be affecting them.
Okay. Thank you for that. It's good that you kind of brought that hair thing, because that's something I think where most Black men try and stay away from that whole business, because it's sometimes very difficult to get our head around it as men. But thank you for bringing it up. So I'm going to move on to Francois. Francois, so let's again talking about Black women. Are you an advocate of Black women? What do you do to promote Black women in the society? And also, do you think Black women are they well represented in society? Maybe if you mention some of the challenges that we think Black women have in society. Go ahead.
Yeah, from historical data that we have, we know that every source of humanity, although men have always been at the forefront, we know that there wouldn't be humanity as we know it without women in general. And in Canada, very specifically, we know that women were put aside and behind. And I'm just going back to the historical data where, for the first time we had women voting not too long ago, back in the 60s, I believe in 67. I might be wrong there on the exact date. So it's, yes, women in all societies almost have been put aside, but they play the biggest and the most key roles in our countries, in our living, and so coming back to the Black woman, I don't think they are forgotten. I don't think they are not considered in the workplaces or in the community, but I think the inherent stereotypical segregation and discriminations and perhaps even not being considered for the roles that we have culturally associated them with, that has really pushed them aside. Now, I have to say, Black people, Black women in Canada are the true pioneers, because if you look at a lot of the initiatives that have happened in Canada, at least for Black people in general, there were a lot of pioneers that were women. I'm talking about Viola, who said no to the segregation, and obviously we have her in one of the bills, the money that we have in Canada. I'm talking about Augustine Jean or Jean, that tabled this whole motion of recognizing Black History Month in the Parliament for the first time. So yes, Black women are very important, but to us, to me, in Canada, in the Canadian context, they're the true champions, because they never sat back. They stood up and they said, you know what, we are on the table. And more and more, we see them helping in pretty much every sector. There are some sectors where men have traditionally dominated. We're talking some of the professions, but there's a lot of efforts to make sure that women are well represented, from the CEO levels to everything. Unfortunately, Black women are still behind even Black men. So there's a lot of work that we have to do. But it all starts from us recognizing that women are actually stronger than we are. It's a fact. Physically we might probably be a little stronger, but emotionally and overall strength, women are in general stronger, and Black women are not any behind. So,
and thank you for that, Francois, and thank you for bringing up the fact that even here in Canada, the pioneers of any Black rights, if you call it that, or even the Black History Month, I think it was pioneered by a woman in Parliament. So you're right. I think we should give a round of applause to the Black woman for leading the charge there. Okay, I'm gonna move on to Marcel. Marcel, so what are your thoughts, Marcel? How are you helping Black women with some of the challenges in society? Do you think Black women are well represented in society? Let's hear your thoughts, Marcel.
All right. So, as Litha said, Black women have to deal with so many issues. For that, I can say they are very strong. They are very strong, and then they just need more leadership. Because I can say Black women are in society are well represented. For those who take a leadership, they are just not a lot of women have leadership. That's why they are not really represented in our society. I just want today to encourage all Black women to take a leadership. They have so many things that they can give to the world. Well, with my community, when I talk to some little woman, why you don't want to participate on these activities, even at the university? Oh no, that's not for me. That's not for me. That's that's where things can start. They don't want to go and give something to the community because they think they are inferior at that time. Or like, all I want to say today is like, you have to know that you are very strong, and then you can give something to our community. So start by doing activities. That's very important. That can help you to see how you can give to the community. They are very need leadership, as I said, and then for the woman already accomplished something in our community, it's the way to go for the little woman and teach them how get power, how get more leadership, because all they need is leadership. If a lot of women can have leadership, things can move and very fast. And that's why I believe. That's what I believe.
Thank you very much for that, Marcel. And I think any Black woman who listen to this recording, Marcel is definitely calling Black women to the leadership podium. And I think we do have a few that are already doing that, maybe many, but certainly thank you for those words, Marcel. Faruk, I'm going to move over to you now. So we're talking about the Black woman, and wanting to know sort of your perspectives on, how can we help Black women as Black men, and also what is your take on maybe how they are viewed by society? Please go ahead.
First of all, I just want to give a shout out to all my beautiful Black women in the building. Shout out to all you guys are working hard. You guys are doing your thing. Shout out to you guys. I could just even start by a great example. Like, I go into places because I'm a business owner and I hear so many different people talk. So even, for instance, Shantae Robinson, shout out to you. You own a business. You're a Black woman striving for greatness. So it's actually even hard for us to push a Black woman these days. It's 2022, right? So a Black woman realizes she has full potential to achieve greatness, overtake so many situations, like go in the office and know her worth and speak up and stuff like that. So I grew up with a mother and I grew up with two sisters, and I know how hardworking they are, and I know how pushy they are. The best I do is just, motivate them when I see something happening. Like Litha said, like, go sis, your hair's looking nice today, right? Like, like stuff like that. So that's what I try to do to, just push the Black women, let them know they could be successful out there. Like I said, beginning of what I just started is you could see examples from the women in the session, because they're letting us know they're wanting to take over. And if we don't take time, they're actually going to come take over, which is great, because we want everybody to feel among, because all great minds need to come together. So, but I mean, the Black women, they're actually taking over right now. So we're pushing them. The best we do is always, like Litha said, is always push and encourage and give them great acknowledgement and let them know they can stand for something, which is good in my opinion.
Excellent, guys. Thanks so much.
Can I add something?
Please go ahead.
So, one of the reasons why we don't see a lot of Black women at the forefront in different positions, and that can probably be said for all women in general, it's because they are overworked. They have way more responsibilities, and they bear the bigger share of responsibilities in our society. And I think one way to help out is to alleviate some of that responsibilities and take them off their list, and that really allows them to shine and display all their other qualities that are not necessarily on display because they are way overworked. If you look at the list of things that most women do on a daily basis, and more so Black women, you realize that yes, they are overworked, and if you can take a few things off their list and help them, they will definitely strive and be in the spotlight as well. I work in an industry where there are way few in engineering. There are very few women, And I can tell you, being in a position of management, we once, and I'm talking a few years ago, at one of my workplaces, we said, you know what, we are 20 men here, and we have almost homogeneous ways of thinking. Even if it's engineering, we're supposed to be creative. The moment we had 2 women in that group, everything started working perfectly. We had more productivity. So there's a lot of things that we gain when the women are on the table, and Black women can definitely help us reach that.
Awesome, thank you for that. Guys, any one of you guys want to add on to that? We'll move on to the next question. Anybody? All right. Okay, so let's move on to our next question. And thank you for your answers. So guys, the next question is really sort of putting you guys on a spot of recognizing that your end is probably going to be more important than your beginning, right? And let's just give some examples. Look at Madimba, Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela's, his ending was so significant that he's still a beacon of life for us to follow. Martin Luther King, another character, he did amazing things for Black people, not just in America, but globally, right? And look at the things that Obama has done. He's just sort of given, Black people globally sort of the idea that, it's possible, right? So what I want to ask you guys specifically is that when your day comes, to be remembered, right? I mean, what do you as a Black man want to be able to be remembered for in your time on this planet? So like what impact do you want to leave behind? What legacy do you want to leave behind as a Black person who lived in this time? So maybe start off with Faruk. Faruk, as a Black man living in this time, when your time comes, what legacy do you want to leave behind? What's your purpose? What are you here for?
I live with a motto, right? It's like greatness loaded. So I'm still realizing my full potential and knowing where I want to be. But my motto is like, because of the situations I've been through throughout my life, I know that, God has put me on this planet for a reason, just to touch people that don't have a voice at all. So the legacy I would want to leave is just people realizing, what I was able to do for them in any aspect at all in life, even if it's good or bad, just to motivate them to be something. Because I know that's what my purpose is in life, just for people to remember me as somebody that has pushed them to be something in life.
Awesome, thank you for that. Okay, so you want to be remembered as somebody who pushed people in life, push people to realize their potential, their greatness,
yes, sir.
That the kind of hidden talent that's in them. Recently,
yes, sir. So they can never give up. They gotta fall forward, not backwards. Let's go.
Let's go. Someone recently said to me that we're all like rough diamonds, right? And in life, we want to be polished in life, so that by the time we reach our end, we're shining, like we should, as a diamond that's polished. Okay, so I'm going to move over to Francois. Francois, so, you're here now, you're moving through life. And I think when we were talking earlier, Francois, you kind of mentioned you love to volunteer, right? But I think, the question here is, look, when your time is up, what do you want to be remembered for? What impact do you want to leave behind? What is your purpose for being on this planet?
I am going to steal one of the quotes from the women panel a couple of weeks ago, because it stuck in my mind, that we are all flowers, and then, flowers are all beautiful. So this Black flower, since we are using those terms, I want it to be recognized as a successful flower that existed on this planet. But on a personal level, really, I have transitioned from different ways of living. I've been fortunate to go pretty much across the globe. I've been able to go to pretty much every province in Canada, and those have taught me, not only again about our differences, but also about the similarities. I'll give you an example. So I went to Newfoundland a few years ago for a work trip, and I went with a colleague actually from Sudbury. And I was born in Burundi, and English is my fourth language. And so I went with a person from Sudbury, born and raised in Sudbury. We went to Newfoundland for work. And when we got to Newfoundland, that person was asking me to translate for him because he couldn't understand. And I said, well, but sorry, you were born in Canada. This is Canada. You should be, English is my fourth language. So you should be able to. He's like, well, I can't understand. Please help me. So I was able to help. And what really stuck to me is that you are here for a purpose. And the first thing that you should do is to be able to find that purpose. And my purpose, and I know I argue with a lot of people, my purpose is that I am useful to myself, to my family, but to the community. And that's how I want to see myself wherever I am. Am I useful? And I can live another quote that I learned from a young age as a Boy Scout, from Baden-Powell, who said, you know what, at the end of the day, did you leave the world a little better than you found it? So every day, at the end of the day, I ask myself, what did I do that was positive today? And I check it off. And to me, that's the kind of legacy that I like to see.
Thank you for that, Francois.
Charles, just so I touch base real quick, because Teresa mentioned something about asking the question, what about for the youths?
Yeah.
Just in the situation we're talking about. Well, talking about youths, like it's harder for them to like even if you wanted to leave a legacy and try to explain to them so many different stuff, right? So we live in a different generation now. So I'm glad that we're actually doing this, because the only way you can educate youths these days is by having great minds together, people that have been through experiences. And we're talking about Black History Month and stuff like that. So people could, the past 2 years with the pandemic and stuff like that, people just watched videos, funny videos and stuff, and nobody really actually was educating themselves about anything at all. So for the youth that actually want to be great or actually want to be well educated, there's steps you actually have to take. It starts from actually listening to a little bit of scenario like this, right? Then you can actually reach out to somebody like Charles, you can reach out to Francois, you can reach out to Marcel, you can reach out to Litha, and there's so many people within the community you can reach out, so you could just learn the concept, right? Because even as you want to be a Black entrepreneur, it comes with racism, it comes with discrimination, it comes with stereotypes, it comes with so many different aspects, right? So you might would want to give up, as time goes on, or as you're trying to get stuff done. So it would be nice if you take some like this, you learn from this, and then you message mentors, you try to talk to mentors so they could direct you to the right path, because that's very important as being a youth. Because, even if you're online trying to learn something real quick, there's so many things that could take your mind out of what you're trying to learn or accomplish anyways. So with the youth trying to learn at all, there are people like Francois, there are people like Litha, there are people like Marcel, Charles, and so many different people that could help you out. That's all I wanted to chip in.
Thank you for that, Faruk. And I think you hit the nail on the head there. The youth need to reach out to role models in the local environment that they can meet with, maybe even have a coffee with, right? And have a chat with them. It's so important, mentorship. And I think what you find is that in any community where there's successful people, they all had some kind of a mentor. Somebody took them out of their wing and kind of guided them along. So Litha, just going back to the previous question for you, Litha, what are you hoping to accomplish for this generation, Litha? What are you hoping to accomplish?
Like my purpose?
Yeah.
Yeah, so again, I explain things in an African way. I always tie stories to it, kind of like it's easier for me that way. So I always believe that I see myself as something we call the Black Exodus, right? So I think in the US post-slavery, they use like Blacks from, I think, the South would go to the North and get as much information as possible and master that information and then bring it back and teach some of the people in the South who couldn't get access to those educations or those platforms, or be in a space where they can learn those skills. So for me, I always look at my life and I say, okay, there's generations that came before me, right? So one that's very common and I think a lot of people might know of, like Shaka Zulu, right? Shaka Zulu didn't think that he was going to be sitting in front of a computer today. All he wanted was like freedom at the time, right? And then generations after that, like people like Steve Biko, they were also not thinking that they were going to be overseas, doing schools elsewhere, but what he had in mind, even in his book, he talks about the Black conscious love of self, and also getting education, stuff that he knew at the time he wouldn't achieve, right? And you spoke about Nelson Mandela as well. Nelson Mandela, I think he was a lawyer. He was well educated. He could have just kept his head down and survived life, but he knew that it was bigger than him and the position in which he was in, that he was able to go the route that he went to. And all of these guys, maybe they had it in mind or maybe they didn't, but their work led to me being where I am today, where I'm sitting in a very diverse room with so many smart minds to have a constructive conversation. So now that I'm here, I see myself also as a Black activist, in a sense where there's so many skills that I think I might have to master. If I cannot master because I will not live long enough, I can connect myself with people that can bring about certain change. And I know mental health is a conversation that is lacking in our community. And another thing that we need to work on is communication, and also knowledge of self as well, about where we're coming from and then where we are going, and also bringing communities together, right? Because it's when you don't have knowledge of self, that you won't be able to progress in a very positive way. And it's very evident in our community. So I think my purpose is learning as much as I can in the skills and information that I think it's important, and be able to send it back. And one of the things I want to do by the end of next year is I want to open, like I have a home back home, if I could send some of the books and some of the content, and if I could just compile myself recording, talking about different topics in a very simplistic sense, and just send it back home as well, right? And even if it's teaching how to fix a table, a skill that someone can use and monetize it. Because I know that this heaven of coming for education, not everyone from the continent can do that. So how do we bring some of those resources back as Black activists, but many might say diaspora? So I see myself as a Black activist.
Yeah, thank you for that, Litha. That's an interesting term that you use, Black activists. Faruk, go ahead, please go ahead.
Yeah, because there's so many questions coming in right in the chat, and everybody's talking, right? So a very, very good example too, Teresa was talking about, and even Litha touched on, was mental health and suicide. If you look into anything like that, Black men are actually high rates of suicide, right? So what is just basically more of a suggestion, right? Because I live in a Sudbury, I live in a city like Sudbury, where is number one unemployment, where is number one. I was here for over 10 years, so I could tell, like, when you're trying to get something and you don't get it, it's pretty hard, because in a city like this, everybody feels for themselves, right? So Teresa brought a great point, like I said, suicide and all those like mental issues, because all those thoughts come to your head as a colored person, right? Because you're like, man, I can't go to anybody to talk to. I can't go to anybody to express myself. I can't go to anybody in my community to actually break it down to them and let them know, oh, I'm actually a doctorate graduate, or I'm actually an engineer, or I'm actually this, I'm actually that. Like, they stay enclosed with themselves, and then they suffer, and then we hear bad news about situations. So just moving on, I feel like if everybody would, come together, reach out. It's hard because even if you reach out to people, they're not able to open up as much as they should. So this is a great conversation for us to have. I'm so happy we're all here, Black History Month, because after this, I hope we're going to be able to touch 5, 4, 6, 10, 20, 40, 50 people. Imagine 10, 100 people in the same room. It will be crazy, because then we're now letting people believe they could be confident. They could have that morale to do whatever they wanted to do, because, they're talking to people and they're breaking that barrier, right? So shout out to everybody. I hope we can accomplish that after, the speech. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Faruk. And I think, you and Litha, are touching on something really important, is that, we need to make an impact, right?
Yes, sir.
I think you make an impact by sharing who you are with others. Just like, Mandela shared who he was with us, and we're able to ride on the strength and the courage that he showed. So that's important. So the next question I have for you is, it's a question that I think we all ask ourselves sometimes. And look, the first time you encountered racism, right? what do you do? You know, did you go and cry? Did you go run away? Did you go back? But more importantly, who did you go to for help? Right? Who did you go to seek help? So guys, if maybe I'll start off with Marcel, because Marcel, I missed you on the question on hoping to accomplish with this generation. But Marcel, maybe tell me, Marcel, the first time you experienced racism, if you ever did, who did you go to? Who did you talk to? What was your support system that you went to? If you can just maybe share that with us.
Right. About that question, I already questioned myself about it, because we can see in our system, like maybe at school or in your workplace, like an office for like discrimination, for stuff like that. But what I realized is when things happen, we can see that this office doesn't have power to deal with that. They always say, oh yeah, there is an office, there is this, and you guys can go there. And then when the thing happen, it's very difficult to set up something and then deal with that. Because there is like the big institution have some policies, and then we cannot go ahead with that. So what I can give like advice, or what I do, is the way that you can see discrimination, you can see racism. For me, when people doesn't want me in this place, I create my place. And then I try to take other people in the same situation and go to that place that I create. Because we cannot fight all the time. For me, the world is too big. There is a place for everyone. I have my little story about, I really like soccer. I'm a soccer player. I play soccer since I born. I don't know when I start. And then when I came in Canada, when I came in at Laurentian, they play intramurals. So it's a competition between students. And then I came late because I have to travel. So I didn't know anyone here in Canada. And then I wanted to play soccer. So I came every game. They play every Tuesday after school. And then I was like, oh, I go to the captains of different teams. Oh, can I play? He looked at me just like that and then saying, I don't think you know how to play. So I was like, okay. So I wait for a lot of time. And then one time, the team that I played, finally, they don't have enough player. That's why I joined. That's why I joined the team. And then I showed them what can I do. And then they saw that I'm a very good player. After the competition, all the teams call me. Oh, Ivan, come play with me. Marcel, come play with me. So I was like, okay, I find this situation. And then I saw a lot of Africans come too. And then I know that they know how to play soccer. So if I join one of the team, I will leave my other friends in that situation. So what I did is create my own team that I call Wakanda. And then I took all my friends back home to play with them and then show to others that we know how to play soccer. And then we became the most competitive team in the university until now. And then this is how I forge my mind. Like everywhere I will go, if people don't give me place, I can create my own place. And then for sure, people will join me because I'm not the only one who's gonna leave this situation. So I believe on all systems that people try to make, like office for discrimination, but in the true situation, like in the reality, they cannot fight against the system. Yeah.
Gotcha. Marcel, thank you for sharing that. And I think just maybe to draw back on some of the things you said, I think the idea of realizing that, you don't have to ask for permission to be your best. Just
exactly.
go. Right. And I think the idea that you're saying too is that, if there's no opportunity for you in place A, go to place B, because you say the world is a big place. There's room for you to be able to exist. And I think performance at the end of the day sort of, is another way to deal with some of these issues that we encounter. It's just by being the best you can be and demonstrating that. Okay, I'm gonna move off to maybe to Francois for the same question. So Francois, when was the first time you encountered racism or discrimination? How did you deal with it? What did you do? What is your coping mechanism to deal with issues like that?
Yeah, racism, I encountered it in a different form, I would say, because again, we are talking of minorities, and minorities come in different ways and forms. Now, in my case, just putting it in the context of Canada, I've experienced negative racism and positive racism. And I'll explain myself. So I lived in London, Ontario, and we went in a bar to have a drink. I was with a few friends, and we were having a good time. And a person came and said, talked to the waiter and said, before you serve those people, you need to come here. And the waiter said, you know what, those guys came before you, so I'm gonna serve them before. And it was my first few days in Canada. So I had experienced racism in other countries before coming to Canada. But in Canada, it was really when, in my first few months when I was in Canada, I was in London, and I was in a bar, and just like that, the person came and said, do not serve them before you serve us, even if they came after. And I said, what does that have to do with us? So I asked the server, so why did you actually stick to your words and say, I'll serve those people? And by the way, they ended up leaving the bar. They left the bar because we were served first. But it wasn't we didn't react to it, but I could sense that it was because of the skin color. And luckily, someone else had a different view. So what I would say, the reason why I said I've experienced positive racism too, is because, I remember my first, what I call my first real job. It was actually in Ottawa. They were looking for people that would interpret. Actually, it was a museum that was showcasing Canadian accomplishments worldwide. And I wasn't a Canadian citizen at that time. And I didn't know a lot of history about Canada. So I applied. And the lady who was in front said, Francois, you're not a Canadian citizen. You didn't grow up here. Why did you even apply? I said, you know what? I believe in myself, and give me a chance. I think this is an opportunity for me. And she said, you know what, Francois? I'll give you 2 weeks. If you can do the work, if you can do the job in 2 weeks, I will give you the job. And the reason why she gave me that opportunity, that lady, I later on learned that she had lived in Australia, and she had met people that were able to excel even without the background of what they were looking for. And she said, Francois, I know you've learned a lot of languages. I know you're new to this environment, but I know you can pick it up very quickly because you've had to adapt. So the fact that I was new and different, but the fact that I was able to adapt gave me the job, and I was able to succeed. So I was positively discriminated or positively considered because of my differences. But not everybody is going to be like Chief Paul. Not everybody is going to be like MVP Jamie. When you meet people, when you come across people, there are going to be negative people out there, and we have to be aware and be ready to confront those situations. Hopefully we are assertive enough, and we are able to compose ourselves and withstand. But we know there are a lot of good people out there, but there are also a few people that might not necessarily want you to succeed. So that's my take.
Thank you for that, Francois. So folks, we have got 2 minutes to go. So what I'm going to do is, for the last 2 minutes, I'm going to ask all the panelists to maybe say, a statement or a very brief statement, maybe 30 seconds each, on maybe some of your thoughts that you want us to take away from this conversation. Litha, you want to go first?
I would like to think of something. Can someone else go for now?
Yeah, sure. Let's go, Faruk. Go ahead. What are some of your closing thoughts?
First of all, I just want to thank everybody for coming in tonight. I've learned so much, and I can't wait to meet so many people and keep going from here. A quick shout out to the Chief of Police, because he touched on so many different topics I can't seem to get in because I don't have too many times, but just on admitting of and acknowledging that a lot has to be done, just because our people in a different land work differently, don't know what to expect if you're not well educated. So if you're having so many different courses to help police officers learn and stuff like that, it would help our situation and it help everybody within the community, because then everybody could feel safer. Shouts to Jamie West. I follow you on Instagram. You do a good job. I see your charity work, your community work. Keep going, keep doing everything you're doing. Bless up, and shouts to all the ladies that are here today. We touched on a great topic. Just to close things up, my name is Faruk. I own a business. It's called Yes Buddy Cleaning Services. If you need your car cleaned up anytime, don't forget to call me up. Your best black owner car detailer. I've been through so many obstacles. If you could learn anything from me, is to stay motivated. Like I said, I always live with a motto that says greatness loading. I'm always going to keep pushing. I have a son. I'm never going to let my son go through what I went through. It's going to be impossible. So that's why I'm going to keep learning. I'm going to keep sharing, and I'm going to keep inspiring, so we could all get to the next level. Thank you very much, Charles. Thank you very much, everybody, Afro-Heritage, for having me to this onto this conversation. I appreciate it. Shout out to everybody that was here. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Faruk. Appreciate you. Thanks for sharing your words, powerful words.
Yes, sir.
Marcel, give us 30 seconds or less closing from your side.
Right. First of all, I want to say thank you, Sudbury. Thank you, all the community, the community of Sudbury, because that was very helpful for me. Also, thank you for you all to be patient with me, because I have to find my word in English. And yeah, it's Marcel Diro. You will find me everywhere in Sudbury. I already met Mr. Paul. Maybe he doesn't remember. I was with Loaxa. We invite you at Oya. And then also the MPP Jamie with the woman Ivorian one time in Paris. Yeah. So thank you everyone. Thank you, Charles. Thank you, Afro-Heritage. I'm also the captain of the junior soccer team. Thank you for all the opportunity that you gave me. I know I'm the youngest person here, and let me tell you something. I will go in the good way for you guys, for all my community, and for the young people like me. I just want to say, like, be very active. Now we have power. Now we have energy. You can think and do what you think. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that, Marcel. Okay, Litha, I think you look like you're ready now. Any closing words from you? 30 seconds or less. We're already over 2 minutes. Thank you, guys.
For sure. I would like to say thank you, Afro-Heritage, for hosting such an event, bringing a community together, like minds together. I was able to learn a lot today. And again, thank you for creating this space and the people who came to participate and listen to some of our stories. Thank you for taking time out of your evening to spend time with us. And MPP Jamie West, thank you for being here today. Chief of Police Paul Pedersen, thank you for coming, because again, like, it's conversations like this that has the opportunity or potential to change the future. So thanks for coming here and sharing your perspective and also learning from us, and hopefully we can grow and build from here. So thanks again.
Excellent. Thank you, Litha. Francois, please go ahead. Give us your 30 seconds, and let's wrap up.
Yeah, I'll make it very short. Thanks again for this forum. I know a lot of people had to work hard to make this happen. Starting from Shante, obviously Charles and Teresa and everyone else. For me, it was an opportunity to talk directly to and exchange. I know everybody has something to contribute, so I thank everybody here on the panel. I learned quite a few from your discussions or your point of view. And for me, there's nothing better than just doing your best. Be your best. Try your best, and everything else that happens around you, you don't have control. If you can change yourself and become the best version of yourself, you've already succeeded. Thank you.
Excellent. Again, guys, I just want to thank our guests for coming, especially the people that are just listening quietly and kind of taking it all in. Thank you for coming on the call. Thank you for taking this half an hour, one hour and a half out of your evening to come and join us. Again, thank you to our friends. Thank you, Chief Paul Patterson. Again, thank you, Jamie West, for coming. And thank you to the ladies who are on the call. Thank you so much for coming. I mean, now you ladies know that that we're fully supportive of you and want to see you also succeed. And just to echo maybe the words that Francois said, the only person that you need to challenge is yourself, okay? You need to be the best version of you, and then everything else will fall in place. So on that note, I'm going to stop the recording right now, and we can go into a bit of a goodbyes for everybody before I completely sign off.